What if the Kennedy half-dollar sitting in your drawer right now isn't just spare change, but a hidden jackpot worth thousands? Welcome back, because today you're about to see why this ordinary-looking coin has shocked collectors with life-changing discoveries. First coin. 1972 United States Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that at first glance feels familiar, almost routine, yet carries within its metal a quiet tension shaped by history, transition, and the lingering shadow of a nation still reflecting on the legacy of President John F. Kennedy. By 1972, the half-dollar had already moved away from its earlier silver-rich composition, settling into a copper-nickel-clad structure. But that shift alone created a subtle divide among collectors who were still chasing the earlier silver issues. What makes this particular year intriguing is not just what it is, but what it represents, a midpoint between nostalgia and modernization, where minting practices were evolving and small, nearly invisible details began to separate ordinary coins from those that would later spark intense collector interest. Look closer at the surface, and the story begins to sharpen. The portrait of Kennedy, still bold and forward-facing, often reveals differences in strike quality depending on where it was minted. Coins from Philadelphia may appear slightly softer in detail, while Denver strikes can sometimes show stronger definition in the hairlines and lettering. The reverse, featuring the heraldic eagle, holds its own secrets, especially in the fine feather details and the sharpness of the shield. Over time, wear patterns, tunning, and luster variations have turned these coins into miniature canvases, where subtle shades of gold, gray, or even faint blue can dramatically influence desirability. But it's not just about appearance, it's about the hidden irregularities that quietly slip through the minting process. In 1972, minor die adjustments and alignment inconsistencies created coins with slight doubling in the lettering, particularly around Liberty or In God We Trust. Some pieces exhibit off-center strikes or faintly misaligned rims, while others carry die cracks that snake across the surface like thin lightning lines. These aren't flaws in the traditional sense. They're fingerprints of the minting process, each one telling a unique story that transforms a common coin into something far more compelling. Then there's the weight and composition check, something serious collectors rely on to separate curiosity from true value. A standard 1972 Kennedy half-dollar should weigh around 11.34 grams, but even a slight deviation can raise questions. A coin that feels just a bit heavier or lighter might hint at a planchet error or an unusual production anomaly. The edge, with its copper core sandwiched between nickel layers, should show a consistent stripe, but any irregularity in that band, too thick, too thin, or uneven, can be the first clue that you're holding something out of the ordinary. Condition, however, is where the real tension builds. A heavily circulated coin may carry only sentimental value, but one that has survived decades with minimal contact marks, sharp edges, and strong original luster can instantly move into a completely different category. High-grade examples, especially those graded by professionals, often reveal microscopic perfection, clean fields, crisp lettering, and a strike so precise it feels almost untouched by time. These are the coins that begin to blur the line between everyday currency and collectible treasure. As the narrative shifts toward value, the range becomes surprisingly wide, almost unpredictable. Minor variations or lightly collectible examples can bring in anywhere from $2,500 to $7,500, depending on their condition and visual appeal. Coins with more noticeable characteristics, like stronger doubling or cleaner strikes, have been known to reach around $9,000, while high-grade specimens with exceptional preservation can climb toward $10,000. These figures aren't promises, but they paint a realistic picture of how dramatically value can change based on small, often overlooked details. Move further into the rare territory, and the numbers begin to feel almost unreal. Unusual mint anomalies, those rare combinations of errors and high quality, can push a coin potential up to $25,000, while rare collector-focused pieces with unique traits might settle around $12,000 to $15,000. Then come the stories that fuel every collector's imagination, coins discovered in unexpected places with striking features and strong demand, reaching $65,000 or even climbing toward $80,000 in extraordinary cases. These aren't everyday outcomes, but they represent the upper edge of what's possible, like stumbling upon a hidden windfall or finding something that could rival a down payment on a home. Before letting excitement take over, careful examination becomes essential. Look at the alignment of the strike. Does the design sit perfectly centered, or does it drift slightly off? Study the rim shape for uniformity, inspect the lettering for doubling, and pay close attention to the overall color and texture of the metal. Even the smallest inconsistency can be the difference between a standard coin and something far more significant. And when in doubt, professional authentication is not just recommended, it's necessary, because the line between valuable and ordinary can be thinner than it seems. And that's what makes the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar so fascinating. It lives in that uncertain space where history, craftsmanship, and chance collide. Somewhere out there, in a forgotten drawer, an old jar, or even loose change, one of these coins could be waiting, quietly holding onto its untold story. And just when you think you've seen everything this series has to offer, there's always another coin, another year, another hidden detail that changes everything. And the next one might be even more shocking. Next coin. The United States Kennedy half-dollar from 1973 often slips quietly through circulation stories, dismissed as just another large silver-toned coin that feels heavier than modern pocket change. Yet behind its familiar portrait lies a moment in American minting history that many people never stop to question. By 1973, the era of widespread silver coinage had already faded, and this coin existed in a transitional phase where design tradition met changing materials and production priorities, creating subtle variations that collectors today study with surprising intensity. What looks like a simple profile of President Kennedy can, under closer inspection, reveal differences in strike depth, texture, and edge formation that hint at the specific conditions under which the coin was produced, almost like a fingerprint left behind by the mint itself. Unlike earlier versions, the 1973 Kennedy half-dollar was struck primarily for circulation and collector sets. But the demand for half-dollars had already begun to decline sharply, which led to lower real-world usage and an unusual pattern of preservation. Many of these coins were stored rather than spent, but that doesn't mean all of them survived in perfect condition, and that's where the story becomes interesting. Some coins experienced inconsistencies during the striking process, such as slight misalignments or incomplete pressure distribution, leading to details in the hair, lettering, or eagle design that appear softer or uneven. These imperfections, often overlooked by casual observers, are exactly what can transform a common coin into something far more desirable. If you hold one of these coins under light and tilt it slowly, the surface can tell a deeper story than its face value suggests. The way the light reflects off the fields, the crispness of the rim, and the sharpness of the lettering all provide clues about its condition and origin. Coins struck with fresh dies tend to show bold, almost sculpted features, while later strikes from worn dies may appear flatter or less defined. In some rare cases, the dies themselves carried microscopic defects, which transferred onto the coins as doubling effects or faint shadow-like impressions around the letters and numbers, creating subtle anomalies that only become visible when examined carefully. The minting context of 1973 also plays a crucial role in why certain examples stand out today. With multiple mint facilities producing coins under slightly different conditions, variations in pressure calibration, die alignment, and even metal flow could lead to unique outcomes. Some coins exhibit what collectors describe as rim expansion, where the outer edge appears slightly broader or more pronounced than expected, often the result of excess striking force or metal displacement during production. Others show slight rotation between the obverse and reverse designs, a detail that might seem minor but can significantly increase interest among specialists who track these irregularities. Over time, stories have emerged of individuals discovering unusual Kennedy half-dollars in old collections, inherited boxes, or forgotten bank rolls, only to realize that what they had overlooked for years might actually be something far more valuable. One collector reportedly found a 1973 example with clear letter doubling and an unusually sharp strike tucked inside a family coin jar, a piece that had quietly sat unnoticed until it was examined under magnification. Moments like these fuel the fascination around this coin because they remind people that value isn't always obvious at first glance, and sometimes the most ordinary-looking objects carry the most unexpected potential. As attention turns toward value, the range of possible outcomes begins to widen dramatically depending on the coin's condition and uniqueness. While many 1973 Kennedy half dollars remain modest in everyday terms, certain examples with notable features have reached significantly higher levels in auction settings or private collector trades. Coins displaying strong visual appeal and well-preserved surfaces have been known to climb into the $5,000 to $12,000 range, while those with more pronounced minting irregularities, such as clear doubling or striking anomalies, have been associated with outcomes closer to $20,000. These figures are not guarantees, but rather reflections of what has been observed in specific collector-driven situations. In more extreme cases, where unusual errors combine with exceptional preservation, the numbers can escalate even further. Rare examples featuring dramatic minting mistakes or highly unusual visual characteristics have been linked to sales around $35,000, and particularly strong mint-state coins with near-perfect surfaces have approached the $50,000 level. There are also stories of coins with highly unusual production flaws, those that stand apart even among era coins, reaching $75,000 or more, while truly extreme errors have been associated with six-figure outcomes, sometimes nearing $100,000. In the rarest scenarios, where a coin presents a one-of-a-kind combination of features, values as high as $120,000 have been discussed within collector circles, always tied to documented sales or private negotiations rather than any promise of future results. For anyone holding a 1973 Kennedy half dollar today, the key is not to assume value, but to approach it with careful curiosity and patience. Start by checking the coin's weight to ensure it aligns with standard specifications, then observe the metal color for any unusual tones or inconsistencies that might indicate a variation. Pay attention to the alignment between the front and back designs, examine the rim for signs of expansion or distortion, and look closely at the lettering for any doubling or shadow-like effects. These small details can make a significant difference, but they require a steady eye and often magnification to fully understand. Before making any decisions, it's always wise to seek professional authentication, as experts can confirm whether a coin's features are genuine minting anomalies or simply the result of wear or damage over time. Rushing to sell without proper evaluation can lead to missed opportunities, especially when dealing with coins that may carry hidden significance. The 1973 Kennedy half dollar may appear ordinary at first, but for those willing to look deeper, it holds a layered story shaped by history, craftsmanship, and the unpredictable nature of minting, where even the smallest detail can change everything. Next up, 1977 United States Kennedy half dollar is one of those coins most people would never look at twice, a piece that quietly passed through pockets, cash registers, and forgotten drawers during a time when half dollars were already fading from everyday use. Yet behind its familiar portrait and standard design lies a story shaped by shifting American habits, changing mint priorities, and a subtle decline in circulation that turned ordinary coins into overlooked time capsules. By 1977, the half dollar was no longer a daily necessity, which meant fewer people paid attention to how these coins were made, how they looked, or what small anomalies might have slipped through unnoticed, creating the perfect conditions for hidden rarities to exist in plain sight for decades. What makes this particular year fascinating is its minting context, where production at Philadelphia and Denver continued steadily, but without the intense scrutiny earlier years had received, allowing small inconsistencies to quietly pass through quality control. Unlike the early 1960s silver issues that drew attention for their metal content, the 1977 version was copper-nickel clad, a composition that made it feel less valuable at the time, yet ironically increased the chance that rare variations would go unnoticed and remain in circulation. These coins were struck in large numbers, but quantity does not erase the possibility of uniqueness, especially when subtle mechanical shifts in minting presses can create one-of-a-kind results. Visually, the coin carries the strong profile of John F. Kennedy, a design that had already become iconic, but on certain 1977 examples, collectors have discovered slight distortions in the lettering, unusual thickness in the rim, or faint doubling in the inscriptions that only reveal themselves under careful inspection. The reverse, with the presidential seal, may appear perfectly standard at first glance, yet on rare pieces, the eagle's feathers or the shield lines can show irregular spacing or softness, hinting at deeper minting irregularities. These are not dramatic at first sight. They are subtle, almost invisible clues that reward patience and attention to detail. Over time, collectors began to realize that some 1977 half dollars carried anomalies that were never officially documented during production, giving rise to a quiet but growing interest in the coin. Stories have surfaced of individuals spending these coins without a second thought, only to later discover that similar examples had been identified as rare variations. The emotional weight of those missed chances adds to the intrigue, because it transforms the coin from a simple object into a reminder that value often hides where no one thinks to look, waiting for the right moment and the right observer to recognize it. As the collector market matured, attention shifted toward grading and condition, revealing that even without errors, exceptionally well-preserved 1977 half dollars could command impressive interest. Coins that avoided circulation damage, maintaining sharp details and original luster, became increasingly desirable. At the same time, the discovery of off-center strikes, misaligned dies, and unusual surface textures added new layers of complexity, proving that even a year considered common could produce pieces that stand out dramatically when examined closely. Auction records and collector reports have shown a surprising range of outcomes for these coins, depending on their characteristics. Minor errors such as light doubling or small rim irregularities have been associated with values in the range of $3,000 to $10,000, while more unusual finds, including noticeable strike anomalies, have reached around $18,000 in documented sales. High-grade examples with exceptional preservation have climbed toward $28,000, and coins with strong, visually striking errors have been linked to figures near $45,000. These numbers are not promises, but reflections of real market behavior, shaped by rarity, demand, and timing. The scale of possibility grows even further when extreme conditions come into play, with mint-state error coins showing dramatic flaws, such as severe misalignments or striking defects, being associated with values around $65,000, while rare misstrikes with unmistakable visual impact have approached $95,000 in certain collector circles. In the most exceptional cases, where a coin combines rarity, condition, and a truly unique minting anomaly, reports have pointed to outcomes as high as $110,000, illustrating just how far the value spectrum can stretch when all the right factors align. For anyone holding a 1977 Kennedy half dollar today, the real opportunity lies in careful observation and informed evaluation, taking the time to check the coin's weight against standard specifications, examine the metal surface for inconsistencies, study the sharpness of the strike, inspect the rim for unusual thickness or distortion, and look closely at the lettering for signs of doubling or misalignment. These steps, combined with professional authentication when something unusual is suspected, can transform an overlooked coin into a remarkable discovery, reminding us that even the most ordinary-looking pieces can carry extraordinary stories waiting to be uncovered. Last coin. The 1984 United States Kennedy half-dollar is the kind of coin most people would glance at and move on from without a second thought. A quiet survivor from an era when half-dollars had already slipped out of daily use. Yet beneath its familiar surface lies a story that few ever take the time to uncover. At first glance, it feels routine, almost predictable, with its standard copper-nickel composition and widely recognized design. But that sense of normalcy is exactly what allowed some of the most fascinating and rare variations of this coin to pass through unnoticed, hiding in plain sight for decades while the world overlooked what it truly held. By 1984, the Philadelphia Mint had refined its production methods, focusing on efficiency and volume rather than the artistry and variation that earlier decades sometimes revealed. This shift created an environment where subtle mechanical inconsistencies could occur without drawing attention, especially since half-dollars were no longer a priority denomination in everyday commerce. The reduced public interest meant fewer eyes were examining these coins closely, and that lack of scrutiny opened the door for rare minting anomalies to quietly enter circulation, untouched and undiscovered by the very people who handled them. The visual identity of the 1984 Kennedy half-dollar appears strong and consistent, yet certain examples reveal slight irregularities that only become visible under careful inspection. Some coins show faint doubling along the edges of the lettering, while others display a slightly off-center strike that shifts the balance of the design ever so subtly. The rim, often overlooked, can sometimes appear uneven or thicker on one side, and the metal surface may carry unusual textures or luster patterns that hint at something more than a routine minting process, turning what seems ordinary into something quietly extraordinary. As collectors began revisiting overlooked modern coins, the 1984 started gaining attention for these subtle but meaningful differences. Stories emerged of individuals who had spent these coins years ago, unaware that certain variations were becoming increasingly desirable. The emotional weight of those missed opportunities adds a deeper layer to the coin's story, because it's not just about rarity, it's about the realization that something potentially life-changing may have passed through your hands without you ever knowing, a moment that can never be reversed, but always lingers in hindsight. The market for this coin has revealed a fascinating range of outcomes, shaped by condition, rarity, and the presence of minting errors. Minor anomalies, such as light doubling or small strike irregularities, have been associated with values ranging from $7,500 to $18,000 in documented collector activity, more unusual misstrikes. Where the design shows clear displacement or mechanical flaws, have reached around $25,000, while exceptionally preserved high-grade examples with sharp detail and original brilliance have climbed toward $40,000 in competitive auctions. As the scale of rarity increases, so does the intensity of collector demand, with strong mint-state-era coins, those displaying clear and dramatic flaws while remaining in near-perfect condition, linked to values near $55,000. Rare misstrikes with unmistakable visual impact have approached $80,000, capturing attention for their bold and undeniable uniqueness. In even more extraordinary cases, coins that combine exceptional preservation with highly unusual minting characteristics have been associated with outcomes around $120,000, showing how dramatically the value can rise when multiple rare factors come together. At the very top of the spectrum, the most extreme and one-of-a-kind examples have been connected to private sales and auction results reaching as high as $150,000, though such outcomes depend heavily on authentication, rarity, and timing within the collector market. These figures are not guarantees, but they reflect real moments where ordinary-looking coins transformed into remarkable assets, reminding us how unpredictable and powerful the world of coin collecting can be when the right discovery is made at the right time. If you have a 1984 Kennedy half-dollar, the most important step is to slow down and examine it carefully, checking its weight against standard expectations, observing the metal color for any unusual tones, studying the alignment of the strike, feeling the rim for irregular thickness, and inspecting the lettering for signs of doubling or distortion. When something appears even slightly unusual, professional authentication becomes essential, because the difference between a common coin and a rare find often comes down to details that only experts can confirm, and that small effort could mean uncovering a hidden story worth far more than you ever imagined. Remember to subscribe and stay connected, because treasures like this don't always announce themselves. They wait quietly in everyday places, and sometimes the most ordinary coin in your collection is the one that changes everything, marking the end of this journey while opening the door to the next discovery.